The shop is a mess and all of our project cars are covered in cobwebs. This has not been a very productive summer, but I have my reasons. This guy's always full of excuses. You call them what you want, but these are my reasons. It's hot. It's been hot and it's been muggy. Getting our stuff out to the track and trying to actually get ET out of things in these conditions is just dumb. So I'm going to wait a couple of weeks. Usually around here in August, it starts to cool off in the evenings. So we'll get back out to the track in a couple of weeks. But in the meantime, I haven't worked on anything really yet either, because I have this reoccurring shoulder problem, you know, the rotator. I've had this for decades, and you know, you hurt it and then you're out of commission for like a couple of weeks where it really, really hurts, like just to lift your arm it hurts. I know, surgery, but everybody I know who's had surgery on it has always had problems afterwards. I just let nature take its course. And I wish I had like a great story how it happened, but you know, no, nothing heroic at all. I just reached under the couch to grab a ball for my dog, and I did it in just a certain way, and boom, she's gone. So working on anything really has been agony. I had to change the fuel pump on our daily driver Jeep like 2 weeks ago. Forget about it. It was miserable. Should have taken me an hour. It took me the whole friggin' day. And I was like, okay, just go easy. There's no reason to hustle. But that's the state of things as they exist. Also, I have to answer Jamie from Dead Dodge Garage's call out, because as you remember a few weeks ago, he came out, he challenged me in Slag Hammer with Dale's Demon, his 364 speed Demon. And the way I remember it is we beat him. I gapped him by 43 car lengths in an 8th mile race. That's big, 43 cars, right? Now, Jamie claims that he had problems with the rear end in it, and that's why he didn't get off the starting line. Well, we each have our version of what happened. But he wants a rematch. And since we're 2,700 miles away from each other, the chances of us actually ending up on the same track on the same day are slim to zero, right? So we decided to just go by ETs. And if it's close, then we'll include reaction time into the equation to figure out, you know, if one of us got up the starting line first. If it's close, it's not going to be close. But at any rate, Jamie's taken Dale's Demon and he's run it, and he's gone a best of 830 with it now. So my number to beat with Slag Hammer is 830. That's it? Okay, so a couple of weeks, let the weather change, and we'll take it back out to the track. And as usual, I'm just gonna take it there, pull it off the trailer, send it, and whatever number comes up on the board, that's what we're gonna go with. So it's the only way that I race. You know, no practice, no warm-ups, no nothing. Take it off the trailer and just send it. So a couple of weeks, Jamie, yeah. And this time, forget about ice cream cakes. I want my timing light back. Jamie conveniently borrowed my timing light, one that I've had for like 20 years, that I've used on countless things. I loved that timing light. It was so satisfying to use. And I've bought a couple of them since then, and I hate them, and I get rid of them. So I want my timing light back, Jamie. I beat that 830 with this thing right here, and you send me my timing light back, okay, bro? All right. So let's get to the topic of today's video. The importance of quest items and the most successful internal combustion engine of all time. Yeah, they tie together, at least they do in my little world. So the quest item, what is the quest item? All right, so I analyze everything, okay? I analyze everything. And anytime when I'm drawn to something or intrigued by something, or I like it, I have to know why. Why do I want this thing so much? Or what does this mean to me on the level beyond of it's just being a car or whatever? There has to be a reason I'm compelled to do something. And I determined very, very early on. Actually, it was a phrase that a buddy of mine used, Anthony DiPietro. We go way back to when we were teenagers. And it was a phrase he used way back when I was a teenager that stuck with me. And I realized, yes, right? And the phrase was the quest item, okay? We're driven by the quest item. We're only really happy when we have a quest item. So, all right, so to define this in better terms, or to understand it in a clearer way, there's an old saying that you can take man out of the cave, but you can't take the caveman out of man. And in our species as humans, there are many different ways that our minds are wired. So some of us are nurturers, and some of us are hunters, some of us are gatherers, some of us are builders. Like, you know, there are different things, different traits that pop up in our psyche, and we're driven by those traits. So as a hunter, we have a need, a wired-in need to acquire things, right? To go out and hunt, right? And acquire them and drag them back, our trophies. We don't do this consciously. We do this, we're just automatically driven to do it. And that's why if you're a car guy, you're automatically, you know, you're hitting Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or classifieds or swap meets, and you're just hunting. You're always looking for the thing, right? Well, I determined a long, long time ago that it's the hunt for that thing that's important. When you don't realize that it's the hunt for the thing that's important, you just keep piling stuff up and piling up. And I'd say you end up with hoarders. That's how a guy ends up with 60 cars in his backyard and storage buildings full of stuff, and nothing ever happens with it because they're only going for that hunt, and they don't really understand that it was the hunt that was important. And then once the hunt is done, you can kind of move away from that object, pass it on, eat it, consume it. Sometimes during the course of the hunt, you find an ally. Like, for instance, our ancestors found the wolf as an ally, right? As mutual, you know, allies. Like, we could go out, we worked better together than we did individually. So instead of me hunting you and you hunting me, let's team up and hunt that. And so we bonded with the wolf, and the wolf we domesticated into the dog, and that relationship is still there today. And that's like these things that sometimes we find or build something, we acquire it, and then we bond with it, and then that's it. Now it becomes part of our existence. But you don't bond with everything. Some things need to be hunted and eaten, and then some things need to be, you know, you team up with them. Does that make any sense? Okay, but that's the motivating thing behind most of what we do as car guys. There's the hunt, there's the challenge of fixing things, of building things, making things faster or more efficient or whatever it is that you're going to do. It all has to do with satisfying that hunter wiring, that every time you find you're going through a swap meet and look, there's the hubcap I need. Boom, dopamine hit, right? It's the hunter in you that found that. And that's why a lot of people will never understand it, but, you know, like the normies, you know, people who just aren't into cars or whatever it is that you're into, they'll never get it because they don't have the hunter gene. They may have the nurturing gene, or they may have the gathering gene or the farming gene. But if you've got the hunter gene, this is the result of it. This is what we do. So, on that note, now we'll go to the other part of this, and the most successful internal combustion engine of all time. One of the things, now since I understand this about myself, about having to always hunt and acquire and then separate myself from the things that I don't really, you know, need once they've been acquired, okay, the quest item, I do this constantly, and most of it I never cover on this channel because it's not really interesting, right? It's just stuff that I'm looking for myself, and then I pass it on. But this time around, my quest item actually is pretty interesting. So I've been, you saw we did the thing on the dirt bike that I picked up, the Chinese dirt bike. And since I was looking, I put the, you know, my quest item was focused on off-road vehicles. Before I bought that thing, I had come across an old a Honda Trail 90 in pieces. So I was at a yard sale, and I see the motor sitting on the floor, and I look up and I see the frame and the forks. I'm like, I want that, you know. So instant dopamine hit. I just acquired something. It was an easy hunt. I wasn't even really hunting, but it was an easy hunt. So I said, I want that. It's only $200, so I bought it. Now, that was the quick dopamine hit from that hunt, even though it really wasn't a hunt, but there was a quick dopamine hit. But now I've opened up a universe of new quest items because I bought this motor and this frame, and now I have the quest for all of the other parts to put it together. This isn't anything profound, it's not anything unusual or rare or particularly desirable or exotic, but neat, right? And I find it neat. And now I'll dive into the acquisition process. You know, during the course of my life doing this or that, I'll always be scanning, I'll always be looking for the little bits and pieces that I need to put this thing together. And I probably won't do anything with it on the channel. It's just going to be my own personal thing. Does that make any sense? I do this all the time. So I pick up this engine and frame from this Honda Trail. And he says, you know what? This is an engine that nobody ever talks about. But not only is it the most successful engine of all time, it's a successful internal combustion device of all time, but it's been produced, wait, I'll tell you what, wait, let's do this. Let's go to it. I have it over at my storage. You remember the old storage place where we used to shoot videos? I'm still over there. I brought it there. So let's go there and I'll show you what it is and we'll talk about it. So you guys who've been following this channel from the beginning, remember this place. This is where we shot everything for the first 2 years. Actually, it's those 4 units right there. It's 4 doors, but it's one big unit inside. So we stopped working here 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago. But we never actually moved out of the place. So we still have lots of things here. This is the frame that we picked up. So that is, best I can determine, we didn't get a title with it or anything, but that's a 1968, 69, or 70 Honda Trail 90. But that's not the story. This is the story. So that engine right there is the most produced, the most successful internal combustion device of all time. And there isn't even a close second. So how many of those things did they produce exactly? Before we even get to that, I'll give you the quick rundown on its history. This isn't a documentary, just an overview. So there's lots of information here, and if you're really interested in the nitty-gritty, there's lots of places to find that information. But that engine is a result of 1950s Honda engineering. So in the middle 1950s, Mr. Honda was looking to transition from motorized bicycles to full-blown motorcycles. And he wanted something that was going to be accepted in the European and American markets. Now he felt that the best way to do this was through racing, by proving his brand's competence in engineering and quality and everything else in racing, much more likely to find success in the general market. You know, race on Sunday, sell on Monday, right? It works everywhere, all over the world. So he set about designing this engine, and it started out as a 50cc 4-stroke race engine. Now when it came time to start moving into the European and the American markets, Honda went with what we know today as the Super Cub, and a detuned version of that race engine is what powered them, and that right there is it. So it started out as a 50cc 4-stroke race engine, and it ended up as regular production, and that is the engine that literally, quite literally, the entire Honda Motors empire was built off of. Now here's the thing about this. The Super Cub is the highest volume production motor vehicle of all time. Since 1958, since its introduction in 1958, along with that engine, over 100 million examples have been produced. So you say they've built over 100 million of these engines, right? No. They've built at least twice that many. They've actually built an uncountable number of these engines. Now, why is it literally an uncountable number? Because it's still in production today, all over the world. Every single day, thousands of these things are built brand new and sent out into traffic all over the world. In some small countries, that's the sole motivating internal combustion device. That's it. Literally an uncountable number of these things. Now they have 100 different designations depending on the manufacturer and the year and the application. You've seen these engines everywhere. They've become known as the base 50. So meaning that it started out as this base 50cc Honda engine and then everything went from there. Now the Honda version of this, introduced 1958 at that 50cc size, grew to 70 cc's, 90 cc's, currently 125 cc's. It's the same engine that powers the Grom, the Monkey, the Super Cub, all of those vehicles, all of those motorcycles, but also the Chinese. So Lifan Motors, which is like the Honda of China. It's not the same company. When the patents expired on this thing, they decided they were going to copy it exactly. And at first, they called it a Hongda, right? Like a Hong Kong Honda. Honda Motor Company didn't like that, so there was a lawsuit and everything else to get them to stop that. But it didn't stop from producing the engine because the patents had expired. So Lifan started producing this, and then other companies all over China started producing them. There were companies all over the world, not just the Chinese or the Japanese, that still build this engine. And like I said, literally thousands of them, brand new, are built and set out into the world every single day. There's a minimum of 200 million of these things that have been produced. And it'll probably get produced until you, I, and everybody we know is long gone and forgotten, because that thing is proficient. The smallest size is the original 50cc, and it's still built in that size in a few different applications. The largest of them is like 144cc. I don't think anybody's gotten to 150cc production-wise, although they do have like aftermarket kits that make them bigger. But this is the engine that most of those Amazon bikes use. Like I said, all of the Groms that you see out there and the Grom knockoffs and clones and all of the mini motos are all based on that engine, on that design. So it's just a beautiful little thing. You know, when you look at this, you say it's so simple and it's so pure. It should be the most successful internal combustion device of all time. This particular one you can instantly identify as being from a trail, specifically a Honda Trail, of the various different engine sizes because of this. This is actually a high-low range that they built into the transmission. It's a 4-speed transmission with a centrifugal clutch. This is a high-low range that they added specifically for the Trail. So only the Trail had the high-low range, and that's how you can identify a Trail setup as opposed to one from a Cub or one from a Grom, or any of the Chinese motorcycles or quads or anything else that's used this engine. It's a very simple hemispherical combustion chamber, cylinder head, overhead cam, very straightforward rockers. You adjust the valve lash through these openings right here. It's got an aluminum head, cast iron jug, aluminum case, and then different variations of the transmissions. They started out as 3 speeds, then they went to 4 speeds in the early 1960s, and they're still 4 speeds. I don't believe there are ever any 5-speed versions of this. And like I said, this one with the high-low range is Honda Trail specific. So that's the engine, and the most important and successful internal combustion device of all time. Now you guys, we get a lot of people on this channel and they're like, I want to learn about engines, I want to learn how things work, I want to learn how to hot rod stuff, I want a cheap way to get involved. There it is, guys. That, if you're trying to cut your teeth and learn the basics of internal combustion and do it dirt cheap, there you go. There it is. You don't like motorcycles? Put it together for a quad, build a go-kart around it. There's a zillion different things you can do with it. But that engine right there represents the cheapest way in. If you can understand and work with the Hemi combustion chamber and the overhead cam setup and everything that's in here, well, it's exactly the same in a car, just scaled up larger. Very, very friendly engine to work with. And if you search on YouTube, there are literally countless tear down and rebuilds of this engine. There was actually a really good one done by the guys at Revzilla. There was a time-lapse rebuild on one of these. It was fantastic. So all of that information is out there, and they're dirt cheap. Like I said, I paid $200 for this motor, which has been rebuilt, and the frame. That's your ticket in if you're looking for cheap, fun, mechanical, internal combustion knowledge. Everything you learn from that, you can apply to everything else. And the parts are cheap, cheap, cheap. I mean, you could build like a full-on race motor, and there are some places in this world where those engines still form the foundation for a lot of racing. For like $300, $400, like the parts are so ridiculously cheap and durable. They ran one of these across Alaska, right? It was like 1,000 miles from one end of Alaska to the other, full throttle the whole time. And it made it almost. They got about 600 feet shy of the tip of Alaska. They're bulletproof, just amazing, happy little engines. But that's my current quest item now, or I have not. This isn't the quest item, but the stuff to put this back together again, to turn it back into a Honda Trail. There's my quest items. I have a bunch of different quest items to find. Now, one of the benefits, one of the side benefits of the quest item or taking on a project like this is that as you go along, you learn all of the little nuances about the thing that you're working on. So I'm not familiar with Honda Trails at all. I've never owned one. I've seen them here and there, but I couldn't just identify one as it went down the street as, okay, that's the year, those are the options, that's what makes that one unusual or different, or the interchange, this will fit that, and they change this in this year and that year. Well, that search for quest items gives you that knowledge, because when I go to find, let's say, okay, there's no rear swing arm on this thing, so I have to go find a swing arm. During the course of hunting for that swing arm, which will probably cost me like $8, during the course of finding that swing arm, I'll find out what years interchange, what models, and it starts here and it ends there, and this is different because of this, and this won't because of that. And that'll all just add to my foundation, my body of knowledge having to do with this particular vehicle. You do this with cars, you do this with trucks, you do this with anything. And that's how you build knowledge. That you get those dopamine hits from the constant hunting and acquisition, and then the assembly of stuff. You get that big dopamine hit when you put the last bolt in and fire the thing up. And then maybe you find a happy companion that you can, maybe I'm taking this concept too far, right? I don't know. But there you go, guys. The importance of quest items. Don't overlook it. This could actually, once you understand, once you grasp that concept, I guarantee you're going to find a lot more satisfaction in your automotive or mechanical endeavors. I hope you got something out of that. And thanks, Anthony, for that phrase, because 50 years later, it's still planted in my head and I'm still working with it. I'll see you tomorrow.